In this presentation, we're going to talk about something a little bit different, a little bit off the track of social psychology. Not really, of course, because I kind of want to help you to understand a little better. I mean, we did that the last, in fact, a little bit in the last chapter when we talked about the self and how, in fact, we bring that into our social interactions. But I kind of wanted to talk very briefly, a very short presentation here, on how some of those other things that we have, motivations and emotions, that we bring into social situations, those that are, so we need to have a little bit of understanding of motivation and emotion in general to help us understand how they interact in our social interactions. There you go, that makes sense. First off, just as a reminder, I mean, I'm not going through this because this is totally not the right class for it, but just to remind you, if you recall, Erik Erikson had his stages of social development, psychosocial development. What you find is that these stages of social development, very briefly, if you recall, people go through a series of 8 stages, and at each stage there's sort of a crisis or something. And children have to manage this crisis. Some manage it successfully, some unsuccessfully, etc. But all children need to go through these crises, and will go through them, in fact, as they age. And the successful completion of one of these crises at an early stage will influence how our social lives develop. But also at the same time is that entwined with social development is cognitive development. That our cognitive development influences how we interact socially with others. Our social interactions form the basis in many ways of cognitive development. After all, our parents, who are our primary drivers of social development, are also our primary drivers of cognitive development at early stages. So it's just important to remember that this idea of our social interactions do in fact develop in this sense. Quick reminder, do you recall that social development mirrors moral development? Remember, this is there is Lawrence Kohlberg's notion, and he argued that as your social development moves forward, our development of morality moves forward as well. And again, I mean, our sense of morality also interacts with our sense of cognitive development, because you have to have sufficient cognitive development to really understand the consequences of actions and stuff. And so, again, very brief because it's not exactly this class, but Kohlberg had talked about the levels of morality, the pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. At the pre-conventional level, it's the morality of self-interest. If it feels good to me, then it's by definition is a morally good thing. If it feels bad to me, it is by definition a morally bad thing. At the conventional level, we start to include other people, social interactions, into our moral thinking. If it hurts somebody I love, then it's a bad thing. At the post-conventional level, we start to transcend our social interactions, and the idea of right or wrong is something that transcends the consequences to me, or transcends the consequences to my group, and is in fact more, the correct way of the universe, or something like that. Very briefly, an emotion is a response of the whole organism. Okay, I mean, it involves physiological arousal. Your stomach is, oh man, expressive behaviors, expressive, conscious experiences. How does it feel to you? And it's this whole organism response. And again, I'm not teaching about emotions to you, but I want to point out that which one do I want to point out? I want to point out the main function of an emotion is social communication. That's why they exist. If you take a brain scan of a monkey going ooh ooh ooh, right, and you scan its brain while it's doing that, you're going to find that those areas of the monkey's brain that are active are going to be those that correspond to the human emotional areas, which is a way of saying when a monkey goes ooh ooh ooh, they're transmitting emotion. But wait a minute, they're communicating. Yeah, that's the point. Okay. Emotions have a social function. Their function is to allow us to communicate information to other people, and in fact, they have a survival value. Again, I'm a big evolutionary kind of guy, but I mean, can important if you need to be able to both express and read the emotions of other people. You need to be able to convey to other people your emotional states, and you need to be able to read them. The simplest one is, of course, anger. If I express anger, this is a cue to other people, hey, you better avoid this guy because there's trouble coming. And at the same time, it's also to my evolutionary advantage to avoid such conflicts, right? So it's in your advantage to be able to read me and say, oh shit, let's avoid that. And it is in my advantage to express that successfully to you to say, hey, let's avoid this conflict, okay? Or here's a very interesting one. They've done these studies they put cameras at the bowling alley, and when a bowler gets a strike, they don't smile when they get a strike. They smile when they turn around and look at the people behind them. So it's like emotions can be felt privately. Don't get me wrong, emotions can be felt privately, but emotions are so much better when they're socially expressed. Y'all know that getting an A, I mean, I see it, I see it when I give back papers. Sometimes students get an A, and you can just see the look on their face, but what's the first thing they want to do? Show it to somebody else, all right? And that makes them really happy. We'll talk about the envy thing and all that crap, too, okay? So it's very cool stuff. And here, not only do most of our emotions have social components, but even privately felt emotions soon spread in social networks, and that's really straightforward. You know the old phrase, if mama ain't happy, nobody's happy, right? Emotions are contagious, and so what happens is either good or bad, but now new research is discovering, and even on social networks now, like Facebook or something, that if one person is unhappy, for example, it can spread not just to the people that they know, but the people that the people that they know and who they know, and one further still. They can still measure an effect, not just the people you know and the people they know, but the people that they know. So 3 removed, I guess that would be. That's pretty cool. Emotional contagion spreads whether positive or negative. So be careful who not just who your friends are, but who the friends of your friends are. All right, motivation. I want to talk very briefly about motivation again, just to kind of get you on track to make sure that you kind of understand some of those more individual psychology things that are relevant for social psych. Okay. What we have here on the right side is an image of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as some of you know, is this little pyramid that says basically, well, very, very briefly, motive. Motive is like from the Latin for to move or something like that, to push or something. A motive is something that literally gets you out of bed in the morning, something, or gets you, it is the cause of an action, if we can imagine such a thing. Well, here's this basic pyramid that Maslow put together, and in this pyramid, it's basically says we are motivated to move our way up the pyramid. We cannot be working towards the top of the pyramid until we've solved the bottom. Okay, and at the bottom we find physiological needs. We have physiological needs that must be met, and if I'm hungry, I really have no desire for any social love, and I don't care. Just give me food, okay? Just feed me. If I don't feel safe, love is not that important. If I don't feel, I don't feel that I have shelter. I mean, it's these basic needs must be met. But what we find is after we get out of the bottom physiological needs, the hunger and thirst and safety, we start to see that it's much more socially based, okay? At the bottom it's biologically based. Pretty quickly as you move your way up, it's all socially based. We are social creatures. Our brains are designed for social interactions. We'll talk about mirror neurons at some point, I'm sure. Our brains are, I mean, all animals are desire social interaction. But human brains are particularly wired for social interaction in ways that other animals just aren't. We are motivated. We find, in fact, that, say, for example, I don't know if I have it in here anywhere or not, but If somebody is rejected, let's say, they're the last kid picked for the kickball team. God, that never happened to me, right? This act of rejection literally, of course, it reads in the brain in the exact same way as pain. You give somebody an electrical shock or you give them rejection, and it fires in the same way. We find that gloating in the brain, and in fact, wait a minute, what was it again? Uh, Happiness, privately felt happiness. In fact, they did a brain study. I'm sort of going back here. They did a brain study where they did a how much how much did happiness register if you just gave somebody something good, and it registered pretty good. But then how much does the brain respond to gloating? Not just you got something good, but the guy over there did not get it, and gloating was just so much registered so much higher. So even this simple thing like you get a candy bar, your candy bar is so much better if they don't. So all of these internal motivations and emotions have social components and are experienced, modified by social interactions. I don't want to get into this. No. I gave you enough on motivation. But anyway, take a look at some of these things. Common motives that humans experience would include hunger, yes, thirst, sure, sex. In fact, all animals have these common motives: hunger, thirst, sex, safety, etc. But then we move along and we start to see self-esteem and self-enhancement. And what we find is as we move our way further down this list, the motives are more likely to be culturally based than biologically based, and therefore different for different parts of the world. Some parts of the world or some cultures stress achievement more, motivation higher than others. Some parts of the world stress a need for control of your environment more than the others. Some parts of the world there's a strong motive to fit in with everybody else, and some parts of the world there's strong motives to stick out from everybody else. There's a need for status and prestige, a motive to make ourselves higher, better. Okay. Again, it's not just getting a candy bar that's good, it's getting a candy bar when somebody else doesn't get a candy bar is really good. But one of my favorites is Schadenfreude. I love Schadenfreude very much. It's so much fun. It is the ultimate in social motives. Schadenfreude is this well, anyway, I got that coming up in the next couple of slides. All right. So the 5 core social motives. Belonging. People are motivated to affiliate and bond with each other. Makes sense. Understanding, to belong. People are motivated to create an accurate enough shared social understanding. Whatever. Controlling. People are motivated to feel competitive and effective in their dealings with the animate and inanimate environment. Enhancing the self. Trusting. Okay, so these are all core social motives or things that motivate us in a social realm. Tying it to social development, we can find that these different 5 social motives, 5 core social motives, would map out fairly nicely to Erik Erikson's theory of it's early over here, okay? Erik Erikson's theory of social development, okay? What do I got here? Oh yeah, like I said, Schadenfreude. This is a social motive to we enjoy watching other people suffer. That is this is kind of creepy stuff, but yeah, we enjoy watching other people suffer. It registers as pleasure in the brain. I mean, first off, men are much more evil than women. I mean, men enjoy. This is like when men watch some people suffer, it registers as pleasure more. But in particular, with men and women in particular, if you set it up so that somebody is a bad guy, then you make them suffer, then this pleasure, this Schadenfreude registers. In fact, literally can be read on a brain scan, can be read in the brain. And it's really interesting, too, because if you set up somebody to be a good guy and you give them an electrical shock, then in particular women, they have this empathic response, and it looks like pain in the brain. And so it's really kind of an interesting thing that this you can literally read these things right in your head. No, too many words. Too many words. It's too early for me. Correlated with envy. I already said that. Yeah, and pain. All right, and then a couple of last ones just to stick on there. Other social motives: face and honor. Now, here in America, we have this concept of honor and stuff, but in some parts of the world, this concept of honor or face or living up to the requirements of your social role or something like that. Uh, Face and honor in some parts of the world are so important that they will motivate. People will be motivated to perform incredible acts of behavior, including some of the most heinous of all. The father, in fact, at some point, I'm sure I'll come back to it because I have this big aversion to it. This father in Dallas a couple of years ago, he was from some Middle Eastern country. I don't know which. I want to say he was a refugee from Iraq, and his two daughters were dating American boys, and he was so upset by this. He was so bothered. He felt it was his role to correct them, and he was so shamed by this. He could not imagine any way to achieve face in this situation except by killing his own daughters. So he ran them over with his car because they were shaming the family, and he retained his family honor and stuff this way. Um, I have some troubles with this. Later on, we'll get into it. I'm not going to get into a rant right now. But the last one that I enjoy talking about, no, I guess it's not the last one. Keeping Up with the Joneses is actually, this is cute. There was a comic strip in the 1930s called Keeping Up with the Joneses, and in this comic strip, the Joneses were the neighbors. And apparently, I don't know this comic strip, but apparently you never actually meet the Joneses. They are just this, damn, the Joneses got this now. What are we going to do? So keeping up with the Joneses is something that we're all guilty of too. Every time every time we're super conscious of our fashion sense or something like that. Every time it's like, and again later on we're going to talk about happiness, for example, and we're going to say there's two kinds of happiness. I got something good, but that's not real happiness. Real happiness is I got something better than other people. And that's what Keeping Up with the Joneses is all about, is to have as much or even better, more than those around you. And this relates to conspicuous consumption. Perhaps you've heard about this. Lavish spending. It's like a Mercedes. It's a nice car and everything. Don't get me wrong. But, honest to God, that little ornament on the hood probably cost you $20,000. All right, why? I mean, the rest of the machine is nice, I'm sure, but the very act of putting that hood ornament on is $20,000. It's a way of achieving social status. We already said earlier that's one of the, and I mean, this is true of all animals. All animals are motivated to achieve social status. That's why you have fights within animal communities. And then here's some very neat little study talking about, again, it's not just succeeding that's good, it's watching somebody else fail. So that's good stuff. So the point behind this little a little presentation that didn't fit with the book, as I said, was to give you a little bit of a background to kind of show you that some of that other psychology, or I'm sure you knew, but just to remind you that some of that other psychology that you had learned is relevant to social psychology. That you can't really discuss social psychology without talking about and understanding those individual things that you bring into the situation. So I'll see you in a little while, and we'll talk about the actual chapter 3, okay?